Getting married was the biggest mistake of my life. I couldn't say I wasn't warned. I had been warned, and pretty strongly. "No," Brian told me. "I won't be your best man. I won't be party to the biggest mistake of your life." "It's not a mistake, Brian. I love her and she loves me. She also loves Jimmy. You know her track record. She's been a ravenous cheater since 9th grade, and that didn't change throughout high school and the first 3 years of college." "I know, Brian, but that was all before we fell in love. I'm not going to get into the marriage bed without having a girlfriend. What was before I proposed to her is in the past." "That may be true for you, Jimmy, but Mickey will never be a single woman. Somewhere along the way, she'll gut you like a fish and leave you to bleed to death. That's her nature, Jimmy. No man will ever be enough for her. I won't stand by you and smile knowing what's going to happen, and it will happen, Jimmy. Maybe not right away, but it will happen." Of course, I knew better. Michelle and I were deeply in love with each other, and I knew with all my heart and soul that once we said our wedding vows, we would live happily ever after. It pained me that my closest friend, my best buddy since 3rd grade, would not only not be my best man, but would not even come to the wedding and reception. Of course, Michelle commented on this, and in keeping with the promise I made to myself to always be honest with my wife, I explained the reason to her. I expected her to get angry and say a few unflattering words about Brian, but she didn't. She just looked at me and said, "He's wrong, Jimmy. You know that, don't you? You are my life and always will be." I really knew it. I knew what she was like before we got together, and how could I not? She lived 2 houses down from me, and we were classmates from 5th grade all the way through high school. I'd been to the after-prom party where she'd taken out 7 of our classmates. I was sitting in the car next to her when she and Steve climbed into the back seat and the car started rocking. 10 minutes later, Steve got in the front and Ted got in the back and the car rocked some more. I was on the roof of our house installing a motorized TV antenna. I looked into the backyard and saw her having sex with Mark and Ben. I knew who she was before she started dating me, but none of that mattered when she committed to me, just as Donna, Maria, Sue, Abby, Bonnie, Sarah, or Nancy mattered to Michelle when I committed to her. You may ask why, given our closeness to each other and the kind of person she was. I was never her lover, and that we didn't even meet until halfway through my freshman year of college. The thing was, I was insecure when it came to Michelle. She was so beautiful, outgoing, and fun-loving, and I was such a down-to-earth person that she intimidated me. Maybe intimidated isn't quite the right word. Maybe not so much intimidated as afraid of rejection. I know it sounds silly considering I had so many girlfriends, but it was the truth. It didn't matter how many girls I got into bed with. They weren't Michelle. I had been in love with Michelle since I was 12 years old, and I believed that if I asked her out and she turned me down, all hope was lost. If I never got rejected, however, there was always the chance that someday, maybe. It's silly, but people in love don't always think fast. I might have been 50 years old and still thinking someday, maybe, if Michelle hadn't come up to me one night at a party and said, "Can I ask you something, Jimmy?" "Sure, Mickey." "Will you ever ask me out on a date?" I was caught off guard and didn't know what to answer. I just stood there, at a loss for words. "Come on, Jimmy, you've known me forever, long enough to call me Mickey, and I don't let anyone do that. It's not a hard question. Will you ever ask me out on a date? Come on, Jimmy, I'm waiting." "Give me a second. I'm trying to sort this out in my head." "What exactly?" "I'm trying to figure out why you're sitting here asking me questions like this while your date sits by the beer keg watching us." "My companion has nothing to do with it. We've known each other for over 12 years. We've seen each other almost every day for all those 12 years. And I've seen the way you look at me. I've always wondered why you've never asked me out. And today I decided I had to ask." I did what any red-blooded American guy would do in a similar situation. I lied. I never asked because the time wasn't right. When I wasn't dating a girl, you were always with a guy. When you weren't dating a guy, I was with a girl. Tonight is a good example. I broke up with Amy last week, and I'm here tonight alone, and you're here with a guy. He's not a boyfriend, just a companion. He brought me, so I'll leave with him, but I won't agree to another date with him, which means I'm in for a date-less weekend, if only... I can be a little slow sometimes, but I'm trying not to be hopelessly stupid, so I asked, would you like to go to the movies with me Friday night? I'd love to. That's where it all started. Half a dozen dates led to us dating. One day, while walking through the mall with Mickey, she stopped in front of a jewelry store and froze, looking in the window at the engagement and wedding rings on display. She didn't say anything, but kept looking at me, and then back at the display case. I knew what the unspoken question was, but I didn't say a word. Later that night, when we were having dinner at Carl's Chop House, Mickey asked me about my intentions. Are you ever going to take us farther than you are now? It was the time of truth, so I replied, I haven't really thought about it. Why? Because I'm not sure going further is a good idea. You know you're going to have to explain it to me, Jimmy. There was no way out but to lay it all out there, so I took a deep breath and said, I've known you since you were 8 years old, Mickey, and being in the same class with you all through high school has allowed me to see you for who you are. I've watched you kiss multiple partners in the cafeteria. I've seen at least one of your sex nights, the one at the prom, and I've seen you in action a couple other times. I don't think you're capable of being a single woman. So you're saying I'm a man-crazed cheater? No, I'm not saying anything bad about you, Mickey. I'm just stating that I think you have a love appetite that no man can satisfy. That doesn't make you bad, just that you're not the best candidate to be a faithful wife. Judging by your past track record, there's a good chance you'll find another partner to satisfy in the future, and I'm just not the sharing type. So what you're saying is that if we get married, I'll cheat on you. Again, based on your past record, I'd say the chances of that are high. She stared at me without saying anything for almost a minute, and then she wiped her mouth with her napkin, threw it on the table, and said, Take me home, please. When we got to her house, I walked her to the door, and she, without turning to me, put the key in the door, opened it, and said, Goodbye, Jimmy, and went inside and closed the door. Goodbye, not good night. I walked back to my car, knowing I had lost something very dear to me. I called Michelle the next morning, and she said, We have nothing to say to each other, Jimmy. Please don't call again. I called her the next day, and then every day for 2 weeks, and as soon as she heard my voice, she hung up immediately. After 2 weeks, I finally got over it and stopped calling. She didn't want to talk to me, but that didn't mean I couldn't see her. Not a day went by on campus that I didn't see her. On Monday and Thursday, I definitely saw her because we were both in Professor Bradley's 10 a.m. political science class, and on Tuesdays and Fridays we both had Rossman's 9:15 a.m. managerial economics class. I saw her at the bookstore, in the student union cafeteria, and just walking around campus, and the constant was that she never acknowledged me. If she saw me, she would turn her head away, and if I worked up the courage to say good morning or good afternoon, she ignored me. It went on like that for the rest of the semester, and then summer break came. I signed up for summer classes to make the last half of senior year easy. Mickey didn't take summer classes, but that didn't mean I didn't see her. She still lived 2 houses down from me, and it was impossible not to see her from time to time. When the fall semester started, we found out that Martindale had statistical analysis at 10 a.m., and no sooner was the day over than Mickey dropped her class. But it didn't matter. I still saw her everywhere I went. I saw her every day, and it really hurt. I had been in love with her for years, and I finally had her, and then I blew it. I cursed myself for not finding a way to keep us together instead of telling her about what drove us apart. I saw her every day and was so busy feeling sorry for myself that I didn't notice that it wasn't the same Michelle I'd seen. The old Michelle never went anywhere without 2 or 3 guys hovering around her like bees around a pollen flower. The Michelle I saw on campus was alone, always alone. But so was I. Since the night Michelle said goodbye to me, I hadn't dated once. I've gotten bogged down in classes and homework. It was the week before spring break, and I was sitting at a table in the student union when Michelle pulled out a chair and sat across from me. We looked at each other in silence for a few moments, and then she said, "I love you, Jimmy. I love you, and the fact that I can't be with you is killing me. I don't know how to convince you that you're wrong about what will happen if you marry me. But I haven't been with anyone since we last went out, and I don't want to be with anyone. I need you, Jimmy. Desperately need you." She brushed a tear off her cheek, and seeing her like that and knowing it was my fault broke my heart. I reached across the table and took her hand. "My life was worth nothing without you, Mickey. I'd rather risk what might happen in the future than live another day without you." She wiped away her tears, smiled at me, and said, "Do you want to skip class for the rest of the day?" The next day, we picked out a ring, and my parents got busy planning the wedding. With the exception of Brian's absence, the wedding and reception went well. Mickey and I went on our honeymoon to Aruba, and it was during the honeymoon that I learned things about my new bride that I never knew. Michelle was a terrible tease. We made love on the balcony of our hotel room, where we could be, and probably were, seen by anyone living on nearby balconies. One night, while walking on the beach, Mickey dragged me behind a docked boat and made me feel good in a way that could have been seen by any passerby. She wore short skirts and then sat down in restaurants, so that it was obvious to anyone looking that she wasn't wearing panties. She wore low-cut blouses with no bra and would bend over to let some guy look under her blouse, and when he started to succeed, she would nudge me, point at him, and say, "I think he wants to have sex with me. What do you think?" I didn't care. It was her honeymoon. She was having fun, and God knows she was making me happy. Every night she did her best to get me into bed, and I was almost relieved when the honeymoon was over and we flew back home. 4 months before we were married, we both graduated from university, found entry-level jobs in our chosen fields, and set out to climb the corporate ladder. 4 years passed, and the subtle changes began. Mickey rose to department head and started dropping in on people from her office after work for a drink or two. These evenings with coworkers were getting later and later, and on some of them she wore something with a low neckline and sexy lingerie. When I asked her about it, all she said was, "You know me, honey. Just kidding around, teasing, and having fun." I didn't dwell on it because I was busy with my career. If you want to get ahead in your career, you have to work longer and harder than the other person, unless you're related to the boss, and I was working long hours. It paid off, and I was promoted to regional manager. The job involved traveling, but not very much, maybe 5 days a month. This was my second trip out of town. It was going to be an overnight trip, and as I was packing, I asked Michelle what she would be doing while I was gone. "Probably just curl up on the couch with a good book." I kissed her goodbye and left. That night I called home at 7 and got no answer. I didn't get an answer at 8:30 or 10:15. When I called the next morning and asked why she didn't pick up the phone, she said, "I decided I wasn't going to pick up the phone." I decided I didn't want to come home to an empty house, so I went in for a drink with some of the girls from the office. "What time did you get home?" "I honestly don't know. I was so woozy when I got here that I just fell into bed. I think it was about 9 or so. Hurry home, honey. I'm really looking forward to seeing you." A few months went by, and it seemed like 3 out of every 5 times I called home during the trip, I didn't get an answer. And it was always because she said she didn't want to come home to an empty house, so she stopped by after work with the girls. Another month went by, and Mickey was promoted to Human Resources Manager, and in her new job she had to do some traveling. It was a Saturday morning. Mickey had just returned from a 4-day trip to Atlanta and was very excited, which wore me out. She was still asleep when I got up, so I decided to see if I could make her weekend a little easier. I went to the laundry room and started loading the washing machine. There was a plastic bag of dirty clothes from Mickey's trip lying there. I emptied it out and started sorting through and throwing things into the washer. There were 2 dirty sets of bra and panties. I stood holding the black lace thong in my hand and pondered. It was the cliché of all clichés. I had come home a day early from a business trip. You walk up to the bedroom door and see something you hoped you'd never see. She was having sex with another man. And then she saw watery eyes watching her from the doorway. "Oh, God, no," she wailed, trying to get out from under the man. She pushed at his chest and screamed, "Get off me! Get off me!" Confused, he turned and looked where she was looking. His eyes got big and the color disappeared from his face when he saw Michelle, and then the screaming started. "Michelle, how could you? In my house and on my bed. How could you? I hope that asshole gives you AIDS," he yelled as he turned around and ran out of the room. The house and my life. Brian was right. Getting married was the biggest mistake of my life. The end. Subscribe to my channel. Thank you.